Greetings, everyone. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everything you do in the way of growing up, maturing, serving others, and uplifting humanity and all. At this time, we'll have a presentation entitled Observation and Self-Mastery. By way of description and introduction, I'll say that the October 1968 issue of the Rosicrucian Digest featured an article by Past Imperator Ralph M entitled Thought of the Month, Lack of Observation and Communication. We will follow up on that article, particularly focusing on the different ways that we apply observation and the law of concentration for self-mastery. We'll consider various practices by which our powers of observation are enhanced. In this way, we'll continue to explore Rosicrucian laws and principles and their creative expression and application for the mastery of life, harmonious living, and service. In this regard, as often our practice, I'll put up for you some images that'll help lead into this topic of observation, but also help us draw into the experience of meditation. So you'll see before you now quite a wonderful work by two artists that work together, John T. and James Biggers. It was a uncle and nephew team. On the left is a work entitled Ascension, and on the right is a work entitled Origins. They're actually in an atrium in the C.G. O'Kelly Library in Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. You'll notice that Origins, which is on the right, it's actually on the west wall of the atrium, whereas Ascension, which is the one we'll concentrate the most on, assist us in ascending to the heights of the celestial sanctum, indeed making our own ascension, is on the east wall, both befittingly in terms of symbolic directions. Now, this work was accomplished between 1990 and 1992 by Dr. John Thomas Biggers in conjunction with James Biggers. Both were highly accomplished artists and art educators. And it's quite remarkable to note all the different things in these works of art. Each one is approximately 15 feet wide by 30 feet high. And you can take them in as a whole, each one individually or both together, because in a way, to use an artistic term, they are much like a die pitch. They're complementary works, one on our origins and one of our ascension. One you could say on the great going out and the great return. Now, you can also then look at them, as we will shortly, look at individual parts and use our powers of observation to see the rich meaning and purpose that are in there. Because both John and James have planted a lot of clues for us in these works and the special purpose they have to help inspire the users of the library at Wayland State University, including many young persons that are growing up in their knowledge, expanding their understanding of the world. But it's something meant for us all, of all ages. Now, let me speak about powers of observation we'll be covering. You notice in the bottom of the Origins work, we see, lo and behold, it says John and James Biggers 92. So you get even more of a sense of the artists and their individuality, as well as this universal theme. You notice there's lots of application of intriguing forms of geometry. Now, both of them were very interested in the sacred application of geometry. I know John mentioned about his nephew James, but he was very interested in what came from the celestial down to the earth, what could be called the one emanating out from the logos and forming it. And John was very interested in that as well, but he also emphasized that from the earthly experiences that we're well grounded in, we rise, we ascend, and we move up into. They work together to unify those two approaches, the coming from the one, but also from the physical to increasingly experiencing it and going back as a sign and signature to a deeper symbolism of meaning and purpose to ascend to the one. And they harmonize that in these works. Let me show you a little more here. We'll concentrate on the ascension and we'll undertake our own ascension. The Rosicrucians are very practical. We like to speak about the meaning and purpose of life, but always in a way that it gets applied. So the spirituality is well grounded. And in that way, we can come into the deepest, most expansive, most masterful, most harmonious form of living in spirituality. It's interesting in this regard that when Professor John Biggers or Dr. Biggers taught art history in addition to his classes in art, he'd like to bring the history of art into the art studio, and that made it more alive and more real to the students. Just like in our own way, this concept of ascension before us, we'll apply that to rise to the heights of celestial sanctum in our meditation. Now, something that was very important to John and to his nephew James was the African diaspora and the African wisdom and the African science and the African arts. John, for example, made various trips over his lifetime to West Africa. He was also very interested in the spiritual teachings throughout Africa, including not only West Africa, but in Egypt. He uses various motifs from African culture in his works, but also in how those were then later applied, updated, and new additions made in the African diaspora, for example, in what became United States. There's a variety of symbolisms he's used. One of these is the railroad tracks. You notice, look, we use our powers of observation here. Do you see more than one set of railroad tracks in there? You may notice that very prominently there's the ones at the bottom. Are there ones elsewhere though? Yes, part midway up. And one thing that may come in mind is often the allusion to the Underground Railroad, the dealing emancipation, the rising up, the ascending from the experience being enslaved, both in its literal sense, but also in enslavement of the mind that we need in each in our own way to expand our vision, move from the self-conscious into the more expanded form of cosmic consciousness. These are things that John and James knew well. You notice there's a figure here that has their arms out, spread out, and they appear to be rising up. There's various motions in this work that suggest a rising up, just like the figures here. They're starting to ascend. They're starting to move upward like we'll do when we ascend to the heights of the celestial sanctum, into more and more expanded realizations of the divine. You see, they're working with the sacred application of geometry and number. We'll notice the doves and so forth here. You'll notice down in here, there's washboards that are associated with everyday life and the cleaning action. Let's move in and take a little more of a look and use this as an inspiration in our own meditation. Here's a picture from the stairs in the atrium at that library. And you can get even more of a sense with the scale of the stairs, how big these works are, and the beautiful light color, the draftsmanship, but also the artistic expression, intriguing figures here, the spiritualized and feminine wisdom. We also see an important motif in John's works, some call the shotgun house, but many think it's actually based on the West African word shogun. That means to mean gods or the divine's house. Let's explore further in here. We've come back to where we were, and you'll notice the washboards, but also a variety of other very intriguing details in here in the use of geometry. You remember a few teleconferences ago, we also talked about Dr. Bigger's work, the quilting party, and how there was those quilting patterns that suggest the underlying geometry existence, but also the importance of quilting and community and passing down of traditions through the women folk, as well as folk of other genders. We notice here a little ribbon, the pigtail pigtail here. The heads have been stylized in these various geometric forms, which are very intriguing. And you'll notice here, we have like a leaf and a stem being held. There's various lines radiating from the hands here, like energy. What I invite for our own practice of powers of observations, I'd like you to figure here on the figure that appears in the cross form, like in the crucifixion form of being resurrected and transfigured. Just as John Biggers wanted to see all the trials and tribulations of the African peoples came to United States and beyond, and how they were triumphant. They ascended, they were ennobled, they were enriched, just as we are in our own experiences in life, we're called. I invite you to look very carefully at this one figure, separate it out from everything else, use your powers of observations, and how the feet are pointed down there. Notice the toes, the various bands of white and gray, crisscross shape here, the head with the brighter spheres like reflected light here. It almost appears like a triangle encompassing the figure, upper body, and then the checker pattern. It's a variety of symbolism, including the polarities and the apparent experiences, the harmonious, inharmonious, the good and evil. Concentrate on this figure, and then soon I'll invite you to close your eyes and see if you can reconstruct or see what you saw visually of this ascending figure in the cruciform shape in your mind's eye on the screen of your own consciousness. I'll give you a few more seconds to do that. And this is a type of exercise the Rosicrucians do in our weekly lessons to build up our powers of observation. And I'll explain later why it's very important to be highly observant. Use our power of observation for the mastery of life, living in full harmony. So if you're ready now, let's close our eyes and see if we can picture on the screen of our consciousness that cruciform figure, that person ascending. Can you see it in the same rich detail as when you looked at the image on the screen? As we build up our powers of observation, we can increasingly do that. Let's not be frustrated if we're feeling, well, I didn't do it as well as I'd like and so forth. It's something that we can do over time and practice. Just try to see if you can build up the image like we do in visualization. Can you remember how the feet were pointed? What angle the arms were at with respect to the main body? What kind of pattern was on the back of the head? Were there literally like stripes, different shades or different colors going down? What was the transition from the upper garment to the lower garment, the pants, the shirt, or was it a jacket? Fill it in more. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and compare what you visualized to what you're seeing now again. This is an enjoyable and fun way that we can use in a very practical way to build up our powers of observation that we can apply in many ways that we'll talk about in the presentation. Now let's continue to observe and move to other parts. This is zooming in even more, and you can see in even more closer detail part of what we were visualizing. There's also the symbolism of this attire that's also can be associated with our encounters with the legal system when people were working on chain gangs and being emancipated. You notice the intriguing colorations, what appears to the person's hair here, maybe a young girl possibly. You see how the attire is done here, almost architecturally. You see the details in the hands and the knuckles. You see the feet of the figures that are by the shogun's home or the divine's home. We see kettles here that can be made for cooking. We're filling in the way of African life in the United States. You see a mirroring of figures facing us, all associated also with these dove-like figures, both associated with ascending and descending, the rising up and the ascension of illumination, but also coming down to infuse and spiritualize us. Let's keep moving up. Here now we see more closely into the rays that are connecting the hands with the hands of the others here. There's an association with the outer, what we would say the outer nature or deeper inner nature, suggested by these works. We see here the ascending stylized bird, the dogs, various steps up, various symbolism associated with John's African heritage. Let's rise up even higher and higher, because in a way we're moving through the picture. The comb was a very important symbol for John. He collected African art and artifacts when he went to his trips to Africa, and the comb for him was a symbol of our soul. You see here too the interlacing diagram, the rays of energy moving into the pot, the different motifs with the interlaced patterns God geometricizes. And also as we move up, we come up, the way we move, as we move increasingly spiritualized, we let go of the visual, we let go of the auditory and the sensual, we move into more and more, some would call abstract, but more and more increasingly beyond the stimulus of the visual. The way the abstract motifs up here in the symbolic geometry is helping in that movement to a unified comprehension of humanity, but also very energetic and emanating. So there's some thoughts to keep in mind as we've closely observed, and we could actually spend a much longer time looking at this 15 feet by 13 foot work as we send up the great light of a solar-like figure here in the sense of unity and the manifestation of things through geometry and number. Now at this point, let's take in the work and use it as an inspiration to rise up into the cosmos. Just looking at the work is a sense of buoyancy, a sense of being freed up, a sense of letting go of who we're not and coming more into our true nature and feeling that buoyant energy. All the trials and tribulations and struggles and opportunity learns that we have daily and the African peoples had here in the United States and beyond. John also meant it as a universal message for all of us, that we can look at life as a great adventure in learning and in transcending and in service. So this time I invite you to close your eyes. I've been inspired by this work of art, done a Rosicrucian exercise on powers of observation. When we close your eyes, let's close our eyes again and enjoy the gentle rhythm of our breath as we prepare to ascend. I invite you to say with me now, may the divine essence of the cosmic infuse my being and cleanse me of all impurities of mind and body, that I may enter into the celestial sanctum and attune in pureness and in worthiness. So I invite you now to ascend, undertake the ascension. Picture yourself rising up using all your imaginative capacity, all your psychic faculties to rise up from the home, the dwelling, the building where you're at now. Picture yourself rising up and enjoying the ascent. Up over your building or home, your surrounding neighborhood, even up over your local geographic area or town or city, and rising faster and faster, enjoying the exhilaration through your imagination and your psychic abilities. Enjoy the exhilaration of the ascent. Now up over your county and even your province or state, and even now your great nation or country. See the great landforms down below, great forms of water, whatever they're taking, the river systems and the landforms, mountains and hills, deserts, farmland, whatever's applicable. to your great nation or country, the great weather systems. And now take in not only your great country or nation, but also your continent and even the hemisphere where you dwell. Now even the entire Earth, your oblate spheroid, the beautiful blue jewel of the Earth rotating about its axis. As we look up and we continue to rise up in this ascension and see other planets and sense their elliptical orbits around the great fiery ball of the sun, our local star. And let us continue to rise higher and higher, faster and faster, beyond nebula and other stars, other planets and other asteroids. And the cosmic web connecting the stars and the galaxies. See not only our Milky Way galaxy and its great spiraling arms as we move out from it, but other nebula and galaxies as we move faster and faster, way beyond the speed of light as we transcend space and time. Continue to rise, and at the same time, let us apply the law of correspondence as we go higher and higher into the cosmos. Let us go deeper and deeper within ourselves to experience the presence of the divine within. And in the cosmos, we'll experience what Rosicrucians refer to as the cosmic, but as a universal intelligence back to the cosmos, guiding the cosmos, and all natural and spiritual laws are helping in its operation. They're also mirrored in us as a microcosm, mirroring the macrocosm through the law of correspondence. Let's rise higher and higher and sense the universe rotating around a great cosmic axis. Just as the Milky Way galaxy rotates about its great center, a black hole, and our Earth rotates about its axis. The universe rotating about great cosmic axis, mirroring the axis of our holy temple, the body. And move closer and closer to the midpoint of that cosmic axis about which the universe is moving in stupendous action and motion, like the great harmony of the spheres, the music of the cosmos. And as you come to that midpoint of the great axis of the universe, slow up there and dwell a time and take in the spectacular, inspiring view, the vastness of the universe, suggesting the vastness that we experience not only on the finite plane here, but also on the infinite plane. So this is the vastness of the cosmic consciousness and the divine mind. And let us just dwell for a while in silence and awe, the experience of the great depth and of the divine within us, and the great expansion, the universe and cosmos rotating about us. I invite you now, if you haven't already, to start visualizing your personal, sacred, celestial sanctum, maybe an inspiring temple on earth, or some wondrous and beautiful place in nature on earth. Fill in the sights and sounds and other impressions there, both physical and psychic. Feel the exhilaration of being in your personal sacred space at the center of the universe, the center of your being. You may wish to picture inspiring works of art or stained glass windows, depicting natural and spiritual laws. And we're learning our weekly lessons, the Rosicrucians, and applying our lives. You may wish to picture those who are all with us on this conference call, as well as the Grand Lodge and Supreme Grand Lodge officers of the Rosicrucian Order, and the invisible and invisible masters and all seekers may be with us. A special sacred ritual is being conducted as a convocation in a Rosicrucian temple. Just continue to fill in the sights and sounds and feel the exhilaration of doing so, just as we felt exhilaration arising to the heights of the celestial sanctum. And once you fill your visualization in, you may wish to say, if it pleases the cosmic, it is done, so mote it be. And just dwell in stillness and silence, receptive to any impressions from the master within, the divine within. Enriched by this movement from the finite plane to the infinite plane. Just feel all there is to feel once you've released visualization. Just be receptive. Be sensitive. To all that can be experienced. All that can be known. Just continue to surrender to the divine within. Our true nature and guide. Let us continue our meditation, undertaking another spiritual operation of the work and worship of the Rosicrucian Order Amorc. From the depths of our being, let us radiate love and well-being to all those who petitioned Grand Lodge of the Rosicrucian Order Amorc for guidance and healing. Let us radiate love and well-being to all those who petition affiliate bodies of the Rosicrucian Order Amorc for guidance and healing. And let us radiate love and well-being to all those you know who are in need of guidance and healing. And let us radiate love and well-being to all sentient beings throughout the cosmos who are in need of guidance and healing. Just let the love and well-being radiate out from the depths of your being like a great searchlight filling the cosmos and the cosmic. Moving at a tremendous rapidity, just like we moved at tremendous rapidity way beyond the speed of light to rise to this high point of consciousness at the celestial sanctum. Just let the love and well-being flow out. Reaching all in need. At a certain point, I think you'll need to make no more conscious effort. It'll continue to flow through the action of the divine within, our true nature and identity. Just let the flow continue. And as it flows out, let our mind expand to be one with the cosmic mind. With all this enriching love and well-being, and intelligence infusing the cosmos. the sending of metaphysical aid have been under the auspices of the Silent Council in conjunction with the Council of Solace of the Rosicrucian Order M. This is a special service we can always perform daily through the law of service and the law of cosmic attunement. Soon we'll formally conclude this period of sending metaphysical aid. I invite you to say with me now, if it pleases the cosmic, it is done, so mote it be. Let us dwell a while longer at the heights of the celestial sanctum, at one with the one, fully identified with the divine within, our true nature and guide and identity. Increasingly a co-agent, co-worker with the cosmic. Soon we begin to ascend from the heights of the celestial sanctum, but assured that the radiations of love and well-being and metaphysical aid will continue from the depths of our being as a way of life, helping fulfill our mission in life. This time you may wish to invoke the law of gratitude, which intensifies the application of the law of cosmic attunement, expressing our thanks to all those who have taught us well, to all those who have sacrificed well on our behalf, for all those who have loved us well. And let us now begin our descent from the heights of the celestial sanctum, taking this exalted state of consciousness into our down-to-earth ways in our own lives. We ascend with great rapidity past galaxies and nebulae, the myriad stars and wonders, sea of vibrations, the Rosicrucians characterized by the cosmic keyboard, at higher and higher rates of vibration from one octave to another, successively doubling. And let us see in the distance our local galaxy and home, the Milky Way galaxy. And let us plunge into it, past myriad stars and stellar phenomena, back to see our own star, the sun, the beautiful elliptical orbits of the planets, and our home, the temple of the earth. We come back to the continent where we left off. Indeed, then that the hemisphere, and then the continent, and a great nation or country, province or state, our county, our geographical location, or town or city. And I invite you to say with me now another prayer and invocation. May the God of my heart sanctify this attunement of self with the celestial sanctum. So mote it be. And let us continue to ascend back into our neighborhood and the building, our home where we left off, the room and however we're situated, seated or lying down. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and stretch, feeling rejuvenated, re-energized, remade, reintegrated, and rested. All the more ready for the work and worship of the Rosicrucian now, order now and always. We can see the Ascension work of art by John T. and James Bigger in a transformed way as we've made the ascent they spoke of and illustrated. So we'll continue now in our presentation. And we've used a period of meditation where we become increasingly sensitive, not only during the period of meditation, but in a momentum we build up after that as a way of life. And by being increasingly sensitive, it heightens our powers of observation. I know one of my professors used to say, never forget anything, which is a challenging thing to say because I know sometimes there's certain things one might wish to not have happened and forgot, but when we transform it with a deeper understanding of the cosmic, we find that all lessons will enrich and ennoble us, and we'll see things all in a new way. Whatever we experience, we can use for the full lesson in service with others. Indeed, I'm concentrating on observation, but it's true that the Past Imperators article we'll give you a reference to a little later on in the chat. Linked it with communication, which is very important because to communicate well, we need to first observe well. Just like to be a good student, we must observe well and communicate well, and then we become a good teacher. The observing and the communicating are linked, just like being a good teacher. It requires first being a good student. And part of that process is then we can become a better creators. Fundamentally in mysticism, we realize ourselves in the image of the divine, a co-creator. We become enriched and noble through these processes. These are signs that are given to us in a certain sense to come in the deeper meaning and purpose of life. Not to be discouraged, but to be enriched, to be hastened on in our upliftment and in joy, and pass that on to others. Now, it's true when we're walking with others, for example, or doing an activity with others, it's often intriguing to notice what others notice that maybe we didn't notice. Or if you're walking a dog and what it notices. Some people and some creatures, dogs, they have their various senses highly developed. The dog has a very much intensified sense of smell. And what its walk is for you as the walker, or if it's walking you, as the expression goes, where is it pulling you to go towards? What is it sensing? It has a different sensory reality. Each of us has our own reality, but we can transform our reality through our pre-sensitivity and meditation, increased sense of sensitivity, increased capacity to observe, and that wider and wider ranges on the cosmic keyboard. But also we can learn through animals how they sense, and others and their developed senses. It's also important to notice that we're being observed by others, but we can use that for our well-being and as a way of service by setting an example. We also observe ourselves, which may seem a little surprising at first, but that's an important part of the evolution of consciousness, from a simple consciousness, sensing things, to capacity to reflect on ourselves and our experiences and what we're observing in self-consciousness. And then expanding that into the cosmic consciousness. And all these other forms of consciousness, simple consciousness, self-consciousness, are actually expressions or different channels of that one cosmic consciousness that we came into in our meditation and where our true nature lies. Now, one of the important factors in observing ourselves is that we can observe our movements. We can observe aches and pains and how to transform them and heal them. Our meditation is an important healing exercise. We also can observe, more to the point, what are our motives? What are our motivations? In the Rosicrucian tradition, we highly developed our conscience so that and as we become more sensitive through meditation, we feel the effect of conscience even stronger, either in a harmonious way or a way that we need to change and get back more on track in the ethical and mystical living. Now, it's also important in this that we know to come to know ourselves and others in significant part by what we do and what they do. We know from the book of Matthew in the Bible, 7:16 to 20 verses, that Yeshua, the Master Jesus, said, "By their fruit you shall know them." And this is very important, is that often we're swayed what people say. Very important as well as what do they do? That's crucial. We'll also, through our increased sensitivity, also be able to read their auras more and expression, but also sensitive to ourselves when we're getting off track. Was that an enriching and noble thing to do? Do we unnecessarily lash out? Do we use kindness? Yes, firmness is needed as well. Do we use the guidance of the inner self? That way, by observing ourselves, we can refine ourselves from the dross, from the lead into the gold, as the alchemists say. Now, thinking about these things, I'd like you to think now about what activities you do that support and encourage you in terms of observing. What sort of activities? Just to give you, Ryan, I know some of you are very artistic inclined and you draw, and I think you'll find when you have to draw something, it forces you in a good way, forces to observe carefully, often things that we may have taken for granted. I know one of my lessons in art that I received from one of my teachers was that he had us do a still life, but there were all white objects on a white table. And one could say, well, can't I just paint it all white and I'm done? No, if you observe carefully, lo and behold, there's different graduations in the white and the shadows, effects, and so forth. What sort of activities do you do that enhance your observation? And I'll invite now Karen to enable the chat so you can type in activities that you do that help you observe carefully. And then we'll talk about how those are very important experiences for us to have in the mastery of life. But feel free now to type in the chat poetry. Thank you very much. Cinema. So the careful observing, especially of that strong interest in the subject. Thank you. Taking a walk. Yeah, especially compared to, driving fast. You can walk, experience gardening, meditate. Thank you very much. Music. Photographing, gardening, playing the guitar and singing. Thank you. The birds and how they fly. Yes. Piano playing. Thank you. They're coming rich. The many details of nature. Oh yes, cooking, ceramic art. Roast coffee. Thank you. Reflection on things studied. These are crucial. Thank you. Yes. Special injection. Thank you. And the cannabis, listening music, reading haikus. Yes, the elegance. Flowing river. Oh, thank you. This is wonderful. Eye contact. Very much so. Closing my eyes. Yeah, great operations here. Acting. Wonderful. Being still, tasting, smelling food. Okay, being in nature. Thank you. I was thinking, I was thinking two things when along the lines you talking about when you have to compose a photograph very carefully. You think of it as being in nature. Mentioned when you have to measure something, and maybe measuring a room or measuring a building, or you have to repair something. You're fixing a faucet or something. Not only you have to observe it carefully now, but you also can start to conceive more how it works, and that can be enlightening in itself. Observing people, very much so. Aromatherapy, taking blessing walks outside. Thank you. Now, these are all very helpful in being still. Thank you. Remembering places where I meditated there before. These are helpful to me. Thank you, and of us all. Now, I'd like to ask you to answer another question. What subject do you find you observe well? Now, these are often subjects we know really well. I know some of you mentioned birding. Like some people are very sensitive to look up and see that's not an eagle. That's not a turkey vulture. That's a black vulture. And it's surprising it's that far north. Or able to distinguish different types of birds. So for some people, it's their culinary arts. For others, it may be fashion. But what is it for you that you observe really carefully? Whether it be through your study or looking around, emotional processing. That's very important. Thank you. Garden watching, sex. Mathematics. Yes, good. The seaside. Emotional reactions. Yeah, right. Thank you. Crystal hunting, physics and astronomy. The desert, architecture. Yeah. Movement. Looking all through the senses. Stars. So these things where we have our power of observations enhanced. Reading people's energy fields, simultaneity. The sky with the moonlight and stars. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Definitely, that's the key. It's the importance and the interest to me. Thank you. So you could enter a few more things in the chat we'll read, but I'll try to pull these things together. So we're thinking about how can we use our insights that you've been typing in the chat and underlying them to increase our powers of observation. One thing is we can expand our range of interests. Yes, and then sometimes I know we think, well, why should I be interested in that? Well, I'll talk about some things why in a moment. But also when we are still in meditation, we become more sensitive. So things impinge on our screen of consciousness much more easily. We can talk about there. We can also find that motivation for increasing our powers of observation is through the law of concentration and being still and having that time of undivided attention or strengthening our attentional control occurs in meditation. That allows us to have that increased intentional control throughout our day. And through some psychological studies, it's just generally estimated that people are mind wandering about 50% of the time, half of the time. That's why often when people meditate at first, particularly when we first learn to do it, saying like, well, this isn't working, my mind's wandering all the time. Well, that isn't, the meditation is not the cause. That's just us taking the time to observe the effects of our wandering mind and not having built up our attentional control. And the attentional control can be built up just like when we do physical exercises or other types of exercises in the Rosicrucian order. It's also very valuable to be able to do exercise like we did. Look at that particular cruciform human figure in the painting we did, and then try to close your eyes and visualize it. Because then that helps us to visualize our personal celestial sanctum. It helps us to visualize when we do mental creation. And one of the central activities and exercises that we learn to do through our Rosicrucian studies in complement with sending metaphysical aid, doing meditation and contemplation. If we've observed well, then we can create well in terms of visualization. Also, when we want to manifest in our life, if we've visualized well, not only the physical from the physical senses, but how the inner emotional state, the psychic state, even the deeper spiritual, meaning that we visualize, encompass those. Those are created on the infinite plane, and then we manifest them on the finite plane. And this is where powers of observation are crucial in the self-mastery. And by self-mastery, you mean harmonious living on all levels of senses of our being. Also, by observing well, we can then say what we're experiencing and communicating well. We can deepen and enrich our relationships with others and all creatures. Indeed, to communicate well, we must have first observed well. And we need to observe well. In fact, we need ever to be vigilant on the mystical path, always on the lookout. There's always telltale signs around us for things we need, clues to grow and mature, messages we're getting from others, telltale signs of how to proceed or how to change in or how we're interacting with others, and sensing more our motive and their motive. And for our safety, but also our general well-being. In this way, we can be more fully ourselves, and we learn how to enrich ourselves and others. Indeed, when we're working with someone in our careers and our family, we can observe them closely, and we could be drawn into the advancement that they have, because there's various things they may do have more mastery in them than us. What were they doing that? And it may be something that, okay, it's a particular activity that we necessarily want to develop this, and this currently is the way they have, but we can see telltale signs of mastery and how they've moved into that skill and level that we can apply in other skills and activities. But also when we engage in an activity that we're trying to develop, whether it's playing tennis with a better player, downhill skiing with a better skier, cooking with a better cooker, meditating someone with very experienced in meditation, that helps draw us, especially when we intensify our spiritual desire, and then we'll be uplifted through them. Also having this rich storehouse of observations in all the senses and through, from the, and all levels of the octaves of the cosmic keyboard, we then have this rich storehouse of the clothed impressions from deep within us, the intimations from the divine within to the outer nature. Our life becomes richer, our capacity to express ourselves becomes richer, our capacity to problem solve or troubleshoot becomes greater. We have much more resources to draw on. In this way, we're enhanced in our creativity and creative new arrangements, and all the more co-creator, which is our divine nature. Now, now, it may be true and thought, well, I thought, and getting more spiritual. I didn't have to concentrate as much on the outer senses and observe so much and so forth. Can't I just let go of all that as illusion? Um, uh, for, the short answer is no. We have to work with the necessary illusions of time and space. And we come into the lessons of life through them and through the law of duality of compare and contrast. Then once we know something well and observed it well, then we can transcend it and sustain that transcendence as needed to let go into the master, to experience the master within. Also, there's the particularly important signs and symbols, aches and pains, but also things that are happening in our increased sensitivity to learn how to operate in the holy temple in a way that sustains the deepest form of spirituality. There is a wisdom and brilliance in the holy temple of the body that behooves us to observe, learn from, and work with and unite with through the master within. Then truly we can transcend and be one with the one, and this all-knowingness that we wish. Indeed, the brilliance and wisdom of the microcosm, well observed, allows us to increasingly merge and realize the entirety of the macrocosm. Now, once these interconnections are realized, we are vaulted into life-altering experience of the consciousness of the cosmic. These matters are no longer abstract philosophical concepts, but a way of life, the full growing up and the fully responsible human being at one and fully identified with the one. At this time, I'd like Karen to post for you in the chat your resources and also to upload a PDF document. The latter you might find the most helpful if you want to follow up on any of these resources and the artwork that I showed you. And by way of conclusion, I will mention that the matters when fully observed or by and through the outer self can then be astonishing to our outer nature, and with a deep familiarity and rightness through the inner self. Many of the things that we come to know and conveyances from the divine within, they surprise the outer self, but the inner self knows them already, is familiar with them already. We have all the signs and symbols in the universe around us to draw us back into our fully divine state, one with the one, into the mystical union. We can use the universe as a great cosmogram to grow up and learn in and help draw others into, just like in John and James Beer work, there was the ascension. So we followed up on that 1968 article by our past imperator, on the lack of observation communications. And we looked at ways that we've enhanced our powers of observation and how we can continue to do that for self-mastery and harmonious living and service. And in this way, we've continued to explore Rosicrucian laws and principles and their creative expression for the mastery of life, harmonious living and service. Thank you very much for everyone for being with us, enjoying our experience together.